Hi there, I'm Dani, spiritualtherapist.com, and my friend Ginny Jablonski is back. Ginny Jablonski, highly intuitive, animal and human soul whisperer. Welcome, my darling angel girl. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you, Dani. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you more than you know, definitely. And it's funny because, or not funny, there's that funny thing going around. Everyone goes, hey ho, and so now in my mind, every time I think about something that could rhyme with ho, I keep saying ho. Like I'm on the phone with people like, thanks ho, love you ho. Like it's happening all the time. And part of our subject today is self-inquiry. And is that my thought or somebody else's? And I love the way that us humans, we can grab onto something that we know is some people will find so offensive, but then the way that we're expanding emotionally right now, really we're going to find hey ho, how are you ho offensive, really, so obviously that's just, we've just been having a chat, guys. Ginny and I, we're both very spiritual people, we're both very much attuned to spirit, we're both very much boots on the ground. I love this woman, she's an absolute gift and a pleasure, and I'm going to hand over to Ginny and let her introduce the topic that she has chosen for today. Over to you, Ginny Jablonski.
Awesome. Thank you, Dani. I was very interested today in sharing as much information as we could about thoughts and where thoughts come from and how thoughts affect our body and the regulation or dysregulation of our organs and glands and the biological processes in our body, as well as the origin of some of the thoughts. And I think some people might be really surprised to know that some of our thoughts are really not our thoughts. They're coming from outside sources, from projections, from our ancestors, from people that might have abused or accosted us in some way in our life, coming from wounded, fractured parts of our soul, what the shaman calls soul loss. And between you and I, as open as we are about our journey, I thought we might open the kimono, so to speak, and share some of our experiences.
Listen, I know I said I keep saying, hey ho, how are you ho? I'm not about to open my kimono, but that would be horrible. But I'm absolutely here to be totally honest and vulnerable and share whatever comes up, whatever comes through. Because as you and I were saying, and you raised the point, the more, and I know this from my days on television or whatever, just being a friend to people, or a therapist or whatever, the more that we use self-examples always disarms something in people, because they could look at you and I and have a program that they've been programmed to believe that anybody on any kind of a platform or anybody on the television is famous or a good or great person or someone to be in awe of, and it's all a load of shit. And quite honestly, one person on the planet, I don't care who you are, don't care how rich you are, what level you're at, if you think that about yourself, if you think you are very important because you're very wealthy or you have a lot of followers or this or that, then you are very much in need, I would suggest lovingly, with the odd smack in the chops possibly, that you are in need of self-inquiry yourself, sir or madam, definitely. What say you, Ginny Jablonski?
Well, I've been interviewed by some really amazing people in my journey, and one person in particular who has her own television show, her own website, and she said, Ginny, I have interviewed a lot of pretty well-known people, authors, famous, spiritual people who have 100,000 or more followers on their website, and their lives are dumpster fires behind the scenes. So, it's the perception, right? And
this is it, Ginny. This is it. Because yesterday, I swear, I'm walking down the mountain and I was thinking, it's so amazing to me. I've just been, people, okay, labels. I cannot stand labels myself. Now, guys, every single person, I swear to you on the planet, whatever level and layer of whatever level and layer, their life has gone to shit right now. How could it not? There is a mass collective of humans evolving, ascending, and everyone's shit has hit the fan. And I know we go in phases, but we've never had a global impact or a crushing or a constriction emotionally like we do now. And then I was hearing a couple of things from people the other day. People are sending me information, and I'm not going to parrot it out there and repeat it. I'm not interested in gossip, and certainly not naming and shaming. Unless you're a really bad motherfucker, then we'll have a little conversation on our own first. But yeah, it's amazing. These people, oh, so-and-so is postulating this and hypothesizing this, and yet their life has gone to shit. You know, this is happening. I'm like, yeah, I know. And the more that we normal normies on our journeys, full of love, you know, the more we know that, the more we hear that, the more we go, do you know what? Maybe you're not all that in a bag of chips, right?
Well, I have a lot of clients who are pretty well known too. And, you know, suffice to say that everything you just said applies, you know, what they see, you know, what a lot of people, it's not everybody, but what is really happening behind the scenes is we are all unpacking what we came here to heal, or experiencing, remembering what we came here to learn. Mm-hmm. And rather than, you know, call it, as they say in German, a shitstorm, I guess, angst, right? I feel like seeing it as an opportunity for healing, everything that has happened to me on my journey, and I try so hard to speak the same language all day, every day to anybody that will listen. Anything that's coming up, frustration, emotion, you know, rage, resentment, shame, it's an opportunity for healing. And it has been all along. We just didn't have the tools. We weren't born in a society that loved us and nurtured us and taught us these tools. And so that's what you and that's what you and I are going to do today, is give people some tools. Definitely. And I think some information. The information's out there, obviously, but you and I think, and a lot of people have a unique perspective on some of the neuropsychology perspectives, the spiritual psychology perspectives, because we truly have the ability with clarity to perceive a lot that is happening on the energetic level, subtle bodies within the nervous system. And I think that's what you and I are going to share today.
Definitely. And I'd love to start a little bit with the brain chemistry, and then I'm going to go to 3 areas of the brain chemistry, and then have you continue into the whole complete journey with the pituitary, etc. So, and again, as you've said, a lot of people know the information that we're going to impart here, but especially now in this perceived high stressful time, depending on where you are in the world and who you are, how much work you've done on yourself, your inner work, which we try and avoid, but man, it's always there, because wherever you go, there you are, it's going to find you. So we start with left hemisphere, right hemisphere of the brain, and in the back we have the limbic system. And now continue, Ginny.
So what we're talking about is how thoughts, which science has proven create electricity, and emotions, which science have proven are magnetic, affect the chemical processes in the limbic system itself. And so every thought creates a chemical process. Every emotion eventually creates a hormone. So the limbic system, the glands in the limbic system generate chemical processes, enzymes, peptides, amino acids, even proteins that inform the pituitary gland, what people refer to as the master gland. And those hormones are created and then distributed through the body to the different organs in the body, causing balanced health or dysregulation, dysfunction, disease of the operating systems, the respiratory system, circulatory system, endocrine system, musculoskeletal system, all of it, right? Nervous system, our neurology. And we're talking a lot today about neurology, but it's not limited to that. And as I shared with you, I was awake all night having thoughts, and my soul was feeding me information about what we were going to talk about today. My soul was so excited that my mind was so all over the place. I did have to make a few notes to make sure I stay on track, because both you and I share a trait that we can go off in the weeds a little bit. And so
and the swamp and down below. Yeah.
yeah. So I wanted to try to keep it a little lighthearted, but also on track for me, because I very easily can get off track. So scientific studies have proven cognitive neuroscience, neuropsychology, psychology. There are many tests out there that you can reference, and they all have different numbers, but we can safely say that generally speaking, humans potentially have between 5 and 15,000 thoughts a day. 5 and 15,000 thoughts a day. And I even saw one study that said 30,000 thoughts a day. So what I wanted to share about that, and what I teach in my classes of self-awareness, is how many of those thoughts are actually coming from a wound, are actually an opportunity for healing. Because when you compare what you and I both just said to the idea of being in the now moment and not having judgment and being neutral, that's the absence of thought. And it is possible to achieve a place of absence of thought. It is. And you and I are going to give people meat and potato tools and understanding of how to get there as a primary self-inquiry process for those who really can't afford a spiritual counseling session every week, or a biodynamic cranial sacral every week, or some sort of quantum healing. Not everybody can afford that. So having said that, I want us to start. Firstly, I would really like to remind people to approach ourselves with wonder and curiosity, and not so heavy, and try hard, if we can, not to blame, not to shame, not to judge ourselves. Even when the outside world tries to invalidate us, our journeys truly, truly are perfect for us, and an evolution of a witnessing of just our wounds and really the contracts that we came in, what we intended as a soul to learn. And that a lot of that happens in the subconscious mind. And we know, again, from science, from psychology, that the subconscious mind manages 95% of our waking thoughts, the decisions we make, our judgments, all of it. And I perceive the subconscious mind as a control panel. So aside and referencing Jose Silva, and the Silva Ultramind system that's available now on, I think, is it Mind Valley? A gentleman who is an unfortunate name, but there's a book out there called Silva Mind Control, unfortunate name, but it really helps one to meditate into an alpha or theta brainwave state and go into the subconscious mind, which I literally see like a control panel with little crystals that say, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, my tendency is to sabotage myself, etc. And so there are programs out there that can help one achieve this state. There's a lot of binaural beats and brainwave meditation out there. One that I don't make any money on this, but a doctor that I really admire, I believe he was a neurosurgeon before he got into healing through sound and using meditative practices. His name is Dr. Jeffrey Thompson, Jeffrey Thompson, Thompson. And he has some free music on his YouTube channel. You can definitely buy his CDs used on Amazon or whatever, but he does have some of his music available for free. And in the Silva classes, they do teach that if you really want the full effect, then you buy these really incredible $130 headphones called Center Point with an E on the end, if you want to have the IMAX theater, effect of the music. And I've used that myself, and it's very effective, very effective. So the way I see the subconscious is literally like a subconscious control panel, like a control room. And most of our beliefs, not all, most of our beliefs, limiting beliefs, belief systems, and even like archetypal programs or patterns that we perpetuate, can be perceived in the subconscious mind. So this is a wonderful tool to use self-inquiry when we get triggered, when we are noticing ourselves having, let's say, unwanted, challenging, difficult, unloving, uncompassionate, not kind thoughts toward ourselves or others. If we get triggered, if we feel a certain way, that will help us understand that there is an opportunity for healing. In my class, the first part of the class, when I teach self-awareness, I always tell people to grab a pen and paper and carry the paper and pen in their purse or their little pocket or whatever, if they're a man, all day long. And any thought they have that is not kind, loving, compassionate, write it down. And I've had clinical psychologists, therapists, doctors in my classes, and they all come back to me in the second class and say, I couldn't, all day long, I was writing down all these negative thoughts. And I'm like, okay, you can stop now. I was just making my point. How many, and a couple of people would say, well, hundreds, I had hundreds of negative thoughts, right, in a day. So you and I are going to give people tools on how to trace them down. And firstly, the process of self-inquiry, we want to share that at the beginning. So when people are watching this, they can just pause at when we talk about the different sources of thoughts, and they can just pause and go right into self-inquiry. So firstly, the way for me that is very helpful for me and my clients to do self-inquiry is first to breathe. And breath work, and Dani, you've talked about this before a couple of times. Breath work is so important. And there are a couple of books that might be interesting to people. One is called Breathing by Dr. Andrew Weil. He's integrative medical doctor. He ran the integrative medicine department at Arizona State University. He's very well known, a lot of information out there. And there's a book called Breathing for Warriors. And I wrote down Dr. Belisa Vranich and Brian Sabine are the authors of Breathing for Warriors. So if you really want the science behind breathing, you'll get that from Andrew Weil. But also, if you're into martial arts, if you're an athlete and you want to perform your improve your performance, or if you're just a person who's trying to stretch or improve your health, wellness, balance, physical health, breathing can be very, very important. So once we breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, optimally, we're going to exhale a few seconds longer than inhaling. And imagine that as we're inhaling through the nose, we are also bringing earth energy up through our feet. Some people like to imagine that there are roots in their feet, whatever your preferred method of grounding is, but getting into a centered space, focused on your body, not journeying, not traveling, not astral traveling, not doing some meditative visual experience, but really focusing here on you, in your heart. This is where the healing is happening. It is. We can, of course, heal in an etheric way and bring it back. But what Dani and I are talking about today is what's going on with us in this life, in our subconscious, affecting our chemical processes of our body, of our mind, etc. So once you're breathing and you're grounding, place your hand on your chest and ask firstly, does this belong to me? Does this thought belong to me? Now, one of the ways I was introduced to this, I had listened to a gentleman by the name of, Emanuel Swedenborg. I think, many years ago, he was interviewed and I was listening to one of his interviews, and he talked about some of our thoughts, the source of them being parasitic entities, astral realm entities. And he said that one of the things that we can do is stop and say, no, that's not my thought. That doesn't belong to me. And I went on a journey based on what he said, how to figure out if it did belong to me or not. So firstly, does the thought belong to me? And if the answer is no, then we can communicate to our consciousness and intend with love and compassion to return that thought to the person or entity that it belongs to. But then if it does belong to us, we can begin to ask questions such as, what was I meant to learn through this experience? Or who am I not forgiving? And you will be surprised, a lot of times you might hear yourself. We are not forgiving ourselves. Or we can ask, and what is under that? What is the cause of this? There are many questions. Dani, would you like to share any self-inquiry questions?
I mean, there's so many ways to go with this. And as
Yeah.
you and I, our loving agenda is to bring to people as many healing techniques themselves, as much self-inquiry as possible. And there's so many ways we could go. And I'm thinking of 1,000 examples all at the same time. The last 2 weeks, I've had at least 12 people who have seen for one-to-one private sessions, who have all said they've had feelings and thoughts of suicidation, killing themselves, ending life. And to each one of those people, the first thing I lovingly said was, I can't tell you how many other people are feeling this mass energy. It's mass consciousness that we're all tapping into. We are hitting walls because we cannot believe how much cruelty we are perceiving in the world. And really, we're not just looking at that cruelty that we're perceiving as the age we are now. That little girl inside, that little boy inside, that inner child in all of us is also perceiving what's happening at the age they were at their most traumatized. And when you have an inner child that hasn't been able to heal, you're looking at potentially a 9-year-old little boy who's got what I call like emotional paralysis, frozen in time, and is perceiving that aspect of himself through the eyes of the adult he now is. But that emotion is running his body and his life, and it's terrifying. Another way to look at this, guys, is if you look at the terrible leadership at the top of the planet, run by monsters, in my opinion. So many of those people are 9-year-old little boys running 60, 70-year-old bodies who are making big decisions for the rest of us. But they've never healed that inner child, and they probably never will, And it's something very important for people that think that authoritative personalities must be listened, must be adored, must be worshipped. And that's a load of shit. Please let me help you bust open and break down that subconscious or conscious thought that you've been programmed to have, because that is not your thought. You didn't put that thought in you. It was put in you, which is why we're on this journey of self-regulation. And just before I come back to you, Ginny, I know we're being very aware of being very gentle with the information that we put out today in particular, because people's traumas are triggered to the top. And so we're very mindfully trying to guide them to self-inquiry, self-soothing, self-regulation. So guys, I am a qualified therapist, as many of you know. Many of you that have never seen me before, hi, I'm Dani, I love you. I'm a therapist and a spiritualist, and I really care about what's happening on the planet, and I really want every human, as Ginny does, to know how beautiful, how amazing, how loved, how strong, how valuable you are, no matter what you tell yourself or what others have told you. But me, I've definitely hit levels and layers of trauma because we're all going through the same ascension process. No one is getting out of this alive anyway, but long term. But and so I very mindfully the other day, I had something really upsetting happen, and then I saw myself and I was sitting self-soothing. I was literally rocking and I was stroking my arm, and I was proud of myself because that's a technique I taught myself way back in childhood. And then later, when I went into study therapy and children's nannying, nursery nursing, I learned that this is a really good way to calm yourself down and self-regulate. And people make fun of what they consider mentally disturbed, mentally handicapped, or autistic, when they see this. This is the best and most brilliant and one of the cleverest ways to shift your brain frequency, to shift the adrenal fatigue and stress your body is under. The cortisol is out of control, and you need to regulate yourself back into some kind of calm. Be proud. I don't care where you are. I don't care where I am. If I need to do it, I'll do it. Self-regulation and self-soothing. And it doesn't matter what anyone says to you. You shut them out while you take yourself back into center. Ginny.
Thank you, Dani, for reminding me that I am not a therapist. I am an intuitive, and I had a near-death experience. And when I came back, I was gone for quite a while. And when I came back with a much higher percentage of consciousness of my higher self, with no context, but I could perceive the trauma in the nervous system, people's thoughts, when what they were thinking and what they were saying was incongruent. And I went on a very lengthy journey of self analysis and revelation and education in many spiritual philosophies. And I also did have the benefit of many different kinds of therapy as well. In my experience, and in the people who come to me, traditional therapy, traditional psychotherapy doesn't touch what Dani and I are talking about today. There are a few rare, amazing individuals who go off into alternative concepts and spiritual psychology. But definitely, as a disclaimer, if anyone feels triggered, please turn it off. You know, if you feel that you have the potential to suffer some sort of break or what have you, please make sure that you do have a qualified psychologist, psychiatrist, psychotherapist ready to help you if you feel you're going to suffer some type of a psychotic break or something like that. And certainly Dani is a phone call away. I'm a multidimensional healer. I majored in economics, but I have 20,000 hours of experience in researching this conversation today. Almost 22,000 hours. So one thing I wanted to say quickly is that the first time after I had listened to that interview by Emanuel Swedenborg, the first time I had a thought following that, hearing that, I had a thought, it started coming through my mind. I went, whoa, no, that's not a kind or loving thought. And I immediately had a third eye vision, like a news crawl across my screen of the sentence that I was about to speak. And it, like a news crawl on, came back, reversed, and then tried to hook me on again. I literally perceived esoterically the thought in my subconscious mind trying to hook in again. And then Dani, with respect to your examples that you were sharing, and pardon me, I've had a couple strokes, so sometimes in my mind it's like a 1980s game show. I'm looking for it's a gas, you know, I'm looking for the words in my mind like a hamster on a wheel. I apologize, sometimes I don't find the right words. I had a client once who was perceived by everyone as having Asperger's, of not having feelings. And he had gone to psychotherapists and, you know, my wife is very emotional. I don't have any emotions. What's going on? And the psychotherapist said to him, well, you know, some people have different arrows in their quiver. You know, that was not helpful. What I found for him was that when he was in first grade, on the bus going to school, an older boy was bullying him, aggressively bullying him. And no one, not the bus driver, not the school, parents, nobody would help him. Every day this persisted. And what he found was if he didn't look at him, if he just turned away, that the bully couldn't hurt him. If he didn't engage eye to eye, if he didn't feel or hear the emotion and perceive the emotion, he would be okay. He would just be able to get to school. And in his entire life, he had that posture that if he didn't look at people, if he didn't perceive their emotion, he would not be threatened. He would be safe. And that's one example of what you were talking about earlier, Dani.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing I think that you and I wanted to share is how our thoughts can actually create pain in the body. And I have found that it's roughly, give or take, a 3-step process. We have a thought. It's a bothersome, troublesome thought. It's an unwanted thought. It's existing in our mental body, which is the 3rd layer out from the physical body. So physical body, etheric body, which is the template for the physical body, mental body, and then emotional body. Emotional body and then mental body. So we're starting at the 3rd subtle body from the body, mental body. It's floating around in the mental body, the mind, the consciousness, and it's you're not good enough. You're not safe in a relationship. No one will ever love you. You will never make enough money to survive. Whatever that thought might be. What do most people do? Ignore it, maybe drink alcohol, in extreme cases, maybe do drugs, marijuana, who knows? Alternative types of soothing, right? Or self-medicating. Or we maybe at this point, at the mental body thought, go to a psychiatrist and we might get prescribed some type of, what are they called? Psychotropic type drugs, or, benzodiazepine, et cetera, right? That's the first chance that our consciousness gives us. That's the first opportunity for healing, is having the negative thought. So as a human being, my perspective that I want to share with other human beings is to take it as an opportunity for healing. It's showing you where you forgot to forgive somebody or let something go, or you just forgot about a certain lesson you came here to learn. Rather than shame and blame yourself, go to self-inquiry. If we miss it in the mental body, it then moves in to the emotional body. Rage, frustration, feelings of abandonment. This goes beyond thoughts. This is a feeling. It's a visceral core feeling, emotion, right? Judgment, indignation, what have you. When we start feeling that way, a lot of people then go to a psychiatrist to get a prescription, because we have to go to work. We wake up, we have a family, we have responsibilities, we have rent to pay. We're living paycheck to paycheck. We need to get to work, and we can't be biting everybody's head off at work, or we can't cry when somebody isn't nice to us on the phone or at the checkout counter. So we go and we get medication. The medication suppresses our conscious ability to remind ourselves that we have an opportunity for healing. And if we don't pay attention then, and we medicate it, or we self-medicate it, it then comes into the etheric body, which is the template for the physical body. So we might trip and fall, we might sprain an ankle, we might fall on our hip, we might have sciatica, we might get a palpable, debilitating anxiety, a flutter in our thymus gland, a headache, a pain in our shoulder, what have you. And now there are many people that have mapped out the biofield and mapped out the messages from the physical body. And what does it mean if we have a pain in the shoulder or the elbow or the right big toe, or, all of that? It's all available to us. But the tool that Dani and I are talking about today is self-inquiry. When we have a thought in the mental body, when we have an emotion coming from the emotional body, when we have a physical pain coming from the etheric body that is solidifying, the more we ignore it, the more the body wants us to know about it. So the stronger the pain might be. We might have a car accident, we might break our leg, we might have many, many different things happen to us. And that's what we are trying to help people avoid, is allowing it to go so far that those emotions begin to create such dysregulation in our hormonal system that the organs begin to dysfunction or dysregulate, such as the pancreas, not accepting the sweetness of life, not being allowing ourselves to accept joy and feel those benevolent, loving emotions, because at this point, then we just don't perceive ourselves as worthy. And obviously, in this hour and a half or whatever broadcast, we cannot talk about, we could talk for a week, a month of Sundays, right? It's so much information. Please don't.
Examples, yeah, we're not, go ahead.
No, please don't be upset if we didn't define a term enough, or we didn't go far enough down a road, or, we're trying to give just very basic information to help some people go on a path of self-inquiry if it benefits them. Or maybe, there are a lot of people who just don't have problems or trauma or negative thoughts, and they're just here to shine their light, and they're happy all the time and they smile. And if those people are watching, maybe this will help somebody they know.
I'd love to interview you, because you'd be the rarest person on the planet. Nothing's ever happened to you. Again, ultimately, with the theory or the subject of self-inquiry, I feel ultimately what we're all doing as adults and, teens or whatever age group might watch this, we're looking at self-authority on every level, self-authority on every single imaginable level, because all of the trauma in us starts in childhood, where we have adults, parents who say the things to us that was said to them, because they were programmed, this is what you do. They were all wrong. All of them were wrong. And now in this generation, our generation, like 40s, 50s, we've raised children, some of us, where we've been the opposite. Oh no, what do you need, darling? And we've raised little shits who were like, oh my God, I came second, I came third, but I need a medal. No, you don't. You didn't win. It's okay. Deal with it. It doesn't mean you're a friggin' loser, because that's been peppered in as well. It means you didn't win, mate. Better luck next time. Or you need a BMW, do you? It's got ludicrous. And now I feel what we're trying to do is humanity is trying to find a medium level where there's responsibility on both sides, or one side, self-responsibility, self-authority. Like I said, the 9-year-old little boys that get shut down because of trauma, they go through life, they get the job, they're programmed, aim high, or they're given something through nepotism because of whatever reason, and they end up there. Nothing that hasn't been healed will heal by itself. It's very simple. And so, as you say, self-inquiry is everything. But then we go into martyrdom, don't we? We've got the victim over here, we've got the martyr over here, and what we need is something kind of in the middle to question both. Oh, and don't ever make that sign. That's the sign of the friggin' devil. So yeah, was not trying to be cool. And don't let your kids do it. Tell them that's the devil. And when you see girlfriends and boyfriends doing it, tell them that's the bloody devil sign. What is it? Something like that. I don't know. Anyway, just, be aware of that. Again, everything gets peppered in. Self-inquiry, self-authority. Gosh, I was going to give an example of, okay, so I'm 17 years old and I couldn't get home. I'd spent my bus fare probably on half a lager. So I'm like, I'll hitch. So I'm by myself, it's winter, and I decide to hitch. Never done it before, always really terrified. I'm sitting there thinking of all the terrible things that my mum had warned me about. Sure enough, a Jaguar comes along. Oh, that's a posh car. That person probably got a few quid. That person might be wealthy, because where I grew up, to see a Jaguar was a really big thing. Anyway, so this guy picks me up in his car. I'm 17. I think he was like 24, 25, John Morgan, picks me up. And unfortunately, the worst possible thing happened that could happen. But then even worse than that, this rapist, he then became obsessed and decided I was going to be with him full time. And he felt it was awful. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And it was terrifying. And he even showed me photographs of an old man he'd murdered. Can you imagine the head fuck? The absolute head fuckery of a 17-year-old, very disturbed young girl. And I was, from many, many layers and levels of trauma, paranormal activity, living in a haunted house, a lot of violence everywhere. And then this happens. And so all of that programming, all of that training led me to one day standing in front of the mirror. And I remember I was wearing my mum's pink robe that she'd given to me, because she got a new one from like British Home Stores or Debenhams. And I was standing in front of the mirror, terrified, knowing that this man is coming for me and he's decided I'm going to live with him. And now he's shown me the worst thing he's done. And so I have all this. It was terrible. I can feel it's funny because it does start to bubble up, and that's all right because I can practice what I talk in the moment. And I stood in front of the mirror and I looked at myself and I could see myself rocking, just trying to stop without realizing I'm self-regulating. But I said to myself, Dani, you deserve this. This is the life you deserve. You deserve this, Dani. And then all of a sudden, an angelic intervention or something said, shut up. Shut up, Dani. And I'm like, holy God. Right there across this. But I decided to go the other way. Now, it took me a long time. I went on to manage to break away from this person, telling people what happened that had a word with him, bad people that knew he was a serial rapist, but he'd stayed away from me. And I vowed that I will scream, I will kill you, I will fight you, I will go to the police. And something shifted, But my point is, if I'd gone with that thought that wasn't my thought, if I hadn't had that moment of 17 years old, the most vulnerable from a child to that time, and thought, that's my life, I should just go, I would have gone along with it. And I probably wouldn't be here today for whatever reason, So, the self-inquiry, self-interruption, but knowing ultimately we're moving to self-authority. Every child, every adult has the right to question every single thing, bar none. And once we stop being bloody victims and martyrs and say, you know what? No, this is my life. I did not come here to suffer. I did not come here to be bullied, bossed around, traumatized, poisoned, lied to. I can self-inquire for self, to self, and to others. And that's it. Boom. Sermon over. Ginny.
No, absolutely. And I think the only thing I would add to victim and martyr, and this is just a kindergarten introduction here in this conversation, is persecutor, because sometimes we are both victim and persecutor.
Yes.
I've had some people who are not quite that mentally stable, tell me I wasn't compassionate enough or helpful enough as a person, and then blame me that their experience would have been much better had I just said one more thing, or had I just, and so they're both the victim of me and the persecutor of me. Right. Wow. And this happened once, and I remember that. And, again, I have a lot of clients that are doctors and clinical psychologists. I have, a client who has a PhD in psychology. She's not a psychologist. And she talks about how she knows action or inaction, in particular, often inaction is wrong, but she just can't make another choice. She just is incapable of making another choice. And so when you're faced with that circumstance, self-inquiry is a tool. What is the resistance? What is preventing me from making a different choice? This is a very powerful tool. And I take self-responsibility very seriously. I teach classes on it. My classes are called EVENT. It's an acronym: expanding our vision and exploring our natural talent. And with that comes a level of self-responsibility. Because on my journey, I remembered a number of times where I was a healer or a spiritual teacher, and I was teaching people very esoteric, very lofty, sorry, I can't find my word, practices, right? Spiritual practices. And unfortunately, people sort of traveled into the astral realm and got affected by astral entities and that type of thing. And so I don't, because I've learned my lesson from past lives, we don't start there. We're not starting there. We're starting here in this life with our thoughts.
Yes.
Right. And not trying to say that the next shiny thing, the next fancy new, amazing new healing modality for $999 is going to heal you. I really have found it's just so true that true healing, true lasting healing comes from inside us when we take responsibility for ourselves. So thank you, Dani, for that. So important.
Just to add something to what you said right there, that's so brilliant what you just said. And because you said about going on that journey of self. So I've seen, like, let's say that I say to you, I can heal you from this, come. And there are 10 people and they lay down and they really believe in my ability to help them, to heal. And it's never me, the person. You're the facilitator. You might be helping to bring in universal healing, but that person, by the very desire inside of them to want to heal something up, they have that power that nobody gives you. That's your power, and nobody can take it away. That is your power. And I've witnessed teachers, oh my God, with the biggest egos in the world, who've had students in their classes, and some advanced students in their classes, and the students gone, oh my God, that was the most profound thing that's ever happened. I can't believe what happened. I was in this meditative state and I had this amazing healing. And then the teacher with the huge ego will say, look what I have done. I have saved your life. It is about me. No, love, it's not about you. Sit down and be quiet, please. Can we not honor all of the people that made the decision inside of themselves to be open to some kind of healing or understanding? It was you, my loves. It's always been you. It's always you. And this is something that we take away from authority. We rebuke authority. I'll speak for myself. I rebuke authority, especially when it comes to my mind, body, and soul, and my, from childhood to adulthood, psychological, psychometrical, emotional, whatever you want to label it, healing, self-inquiry, self-authority. Over to you.
I am one of the biggest offenders I've ever met of giving my power away, truly. When I had my second near-death experience, I knew if I did not get off of the prescription opioids, you do become prescribed to opioids because it's really an anesthetic. It's not really a pain management medicine. It's an anesthetic. So then your body and your brain create new neural pathways to bring you that information again that you're in pain. So it's this slippery slope and you need more and more. And eventually I had just enough that my brain forgot to tell my lungs to breathe. Well, when I came back, I had this higher level of consciousness and this knowing and this direct connection to my divine oversoul, which was phenomenal. But I was also a very traumatized person. And I knew that I had to get off of opioids. And I had never heard the word alternative healing. I didn't know acupuncture existed. I don't think I ever got a massage or a facial in my life. I mean, I just really was a very simple person who, majored in economics and did, I had the career I had, and we've talked about that on other shows.
Just so that people know, hold your thought there, Ginny. Don't forget your thought. But just so you guys know, and I'm sure you're really enjoying Ginny Jablonski so much, this will be our 4th broadcast on my small but mighty channel. And Ginny's life is so fascinating. I mean, she's an animal whisperer. The animals behind her is a herd that she knows. We've talked about her addiction to steroids that she was addicted by, the pharmacology revolution, whatever you want to call it.
Fentanyl.
Again, right. So there's so much, we don't want to get into it too much here because we're both alphas, we both talk a lot. And so, but guys, honestly, please go on the journey. Ginny Jablonski is fascinating. So again, I'm sure people are going, what near-death experience? What do you mean? Like, it's all on my channel, Dani, Spiritual Therapist. Okay, darling, continue with your thought, please.
Oh, I lost my thought. Giving my power away. And so I was so naively and hopeful because I had been 10 years basically bedridden for 10 years. So I had all pride, all vanity, all ego, and mostly all ego, stripped from me. So I was just like this kid in Disneyland and all of these healers and potential for healing. And I wanted to heal. And 3 times a week, I would lay on healers' tables, just laying there. Oh, you never met anybody that wanted to heal more than me. Go ahead, heal me. Oh, here's another $500. Here's another $360. Here's another $200. And I remember the first healer I went to, she said, oh yeah, for $250, all you have to do is go back into your childhood and just imagine a whole new life for yourself. Guess what? That didn't work. And then, a physical therapist that was kind of like doing some sort of Reiki, and I went to him 3 times a week for 6 months. I don't know how much money I gave him. And I just laid on that table for years. I was probably $60,000 into my healing journey 2 years in, and had given my power away over and over and over. So can someone, as you said, take your power away from you? It may be possible in certain circumstances, but it's more likely that we have given our power away inadvertently, and especially in our childhood, where we have taken on, where we have perceived the world to work in a certain way, where we have felt threatened, where we have created energetic coping mechanisms, energetic processes, workarounds, loaded up our solar plexus chakra in redirecting or limiting the redirection of power and energy from our solar plexus chakra, what have you. And there are so many ways from an esoteric perspective that those traumatizing experiences, wounding experiences, just where we have felt just so wrong, felt so unlovable. The outside world is treating us this way because we must deserve this, or we must not deserve to be loved. Or Dani, as you said, this is the life you deserve. You may as well go into sex slavery, or what, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of that going on in our subtle bodies, in our chakras. You and I both studied with people very much associated with the Berkeley Psychic Institute. I studied with a gentleman named Michael Tamura, who ran the Berkeley Psychic Institute for a long time. And if you read his book, You Are the Answer, fascinating book, you'll find that they perceive the trauma held in our energetic field, our luminous architecture, our chakras. They perceive that as pain pictures. And so if it's a third dimensional thought or level of consciousness, the picture in my perception will come in the form of a square. If it's a fourth dimensional thought, the picture will be in the shape of a triangle. If it's a fifth dimensional experience, the picture will be spherical. A lot of different people perceive different ways, but what Michael Tamura calls pain pictures, these are the places of unforgiveness of self and others, unresolved emotions and judgment attached to memories, experiences that are held in the chakras, creating a dysfunction, disease, imbalance of the functioning of the chakras. And we all know by now that the chakras are a metaphor for the complex nervous system in the human body, 40 miles of nerves in the human body, sending electrical impulses, magnetic impulses, sending light. That's why in chiropractic, when our ribs are out, when our bones are misaligned, it's called a subluxation. In Latin, absence of light. The light is not flowing. So at all the places where these wounds, these, I hate to overuse the word trauma, but we'll just say traumas are held in our body, it's dysregulating the flow of light, the flow of energy. And when I first started on my journey, I would go to the chiropractor 2, sometimes 3 times a week for tremendous pain, and my ribs would pop out and they wouldn't stay, and I'd get an adjustment and it would last for hours or a day and I'd be in severe pain again. I haven't been to a chiropractor in easily 6 or 7 months, and I go just for maintenance or a tune-up just in case, never because of pain now. It's been my past lives, it's been the trauma, it's been the dysregulation of my musculoskeletal system that caused my spine to be so misaligned. In particular, my neck. In particular, it led to migraines for me. I'm not saying that's the source of everyone's migraine. But Dani, would you like to go down the road of the sources of some of our thoughts today, or do you feel like we've covered enough ground? It's totally up to you.
You know what, again, we could just keep going. There's a couple of things that have come up for me, and one of them is this, and I can feel you thinking of there's a mother out there, and you know who you are. We had a beautiful session together 6 weeks ago. You have written to me, you've even written to me under the comments on my channel to say, can I do a session with your daughter? the answer is absolutely. I've had everything hacked, Ginny. I've had my emails hacked. I've had them erased. I don't always see them. They get blocked. And this mother, so please, you're welcome to connect to me again. I have no way of, I don't remember your name. There's so many people. Oh, and you know what? That's actually a really good subject. In between all of this and self-abuse and abusing, covering up wounds, the ways that we behave, we're in a position on the planet now where our triggers are fully flipped. They're flipped. People are behaving incredibly badly, and I'll put myself in that, maybe me too, and I hope I notice it if I am. But even friends around me, I'm like, uh-oh, what's happening there? People are popping off, they're losing their shit, they are behaving in ways that you've never seen before. And what, I don't know what it is in people that think they can be rude. Like, guys, we read our comments on our channels, okay? We also have hearts and we also have feelings, and everything we do is for free for you, to support you in some way or fashion, certainly on my channel, and I know on yours too, Ginny. So last Saturday night, my friend Elena Danan redid a video, because we're aware now that there is disclosure coming more and more. We want to help people assimilate. Well, what do they eat, our brothers and sisters? How do they dress? How does their technology work? What am I going to look for? What sensations in my body will happen? And I know it's crucial to bring in this information. So we recorded this last year, and then Elena redid it, and we put it out on Saturday. It was only a section. So 2 people, I couldn't believe it, one woman wrote, "What a crock," right? What a crock. This was less than an hour. And I'm like, are you crazy? That's Alex Collier, 40 years in the field of bringing Andromedan information from space. And Elena Danan, Pleiadian Galactic Federation. Oh, I'm sorry, love, that we didn't fill your hour. Did you have to think, would you go on your phone? You know, it's that kind of thing. It's like, what is wrong? But it made me giggle, and I just deleted. And then someone else pretty much said exactly the same thing. And then I get an email from a woman same night, like after the broadcast, and I see this email come in, so I grab it because I get so many emails, you know. And this lady's like, "I can't tell you how I feel that you didn't connect with me. I have a very bad feeling because you didn't respond to my email." And I'm like, well, what email? And so I wrote straight back to her and I said, "Oh, hi there. It's never personal. I don't see all the emails, whether it's spam, junk, where it goes. And some of them get blocked. People get blocked from me. People I'm about to do an interview with, as you know, get blocked from me." Mm-hmm. So I emailed her immediately. It says, never personal. You're welcome to book. You know, welcome to go on my diary and book. And she wrote back. She says, "Well, I do take it personally. I do. I don't want to spend time with someone who's got no time for me." And I looked at that, and the first thing I felt was compassion. I thought, you're so wrapped up in you that it's quite easy for you just to attack someone, you know, like me, who's in service, like giving help. But you know what? You do you. If you want to be the wounded person, but have a good dig, because the last thing she said was, "Love your broadcast," like a very passive aggressive. So I didn't bother to respond after that. But we, the people, let's say, that put themselves in self-service ways, you got to look at what you're doing that for as well. That self-inquiries. Are you doing it because you want to look like a martyr or a hero? Are you doing it because you are so driven to help every single body else? What about you? What about you? What about your boundaries? What about your healing along the way? Like, it's so important. So just to close that point, although please continue, Ginny, if you feel it's necessary for us to, I just want people to be more aware of how much more aggressive and ruder people are, and even people who are at the top of their platforms. And there seems to be this nonsense division, which I am not playing. I do not play. There is no such thing as a side. Taking sides, that's so ridiculous. How old are you? 2? You know, in an ascension period where the only side you should be on is yours. It's an individual journey, an individual experience, right, Ginny?
Right. Maybe it would be, let me check the time here. We've been on for 1:15. So maybe it would be, we haven't?
I can't believe that. Stop.
Are you sure? I think, well, it's, for me, it's 11:15-ish. couple of things. Do you have to go? Is it 12:15 for you?
No,
what
no.
time?
No, because remember, we realized that the American clocks went back because the Western world screwed up the clock system for the rest of the, the indigenous and the Latin American where I live. So I didn't even know that, America and England changed their frigging clock again. So then we've messed our time up. And that's something that definitely doesn't compute in my body, time at all. But no, it's only 11:30, and this is actually the time we were supposed to be coming on before I realized. So we're good, darling. We'll continue.
Okay. Well, maybe we can save the thoughts for another day or not. Or, a couple of things. One, people email me quite a bit. My life is a dumpster fire in a clusterfuck, and I need help. And I can only work so many hours in a day. So I can't help everybody for free. I used to. When I first started working, 6-7 years ago, if somebody had $15, I would help them. And it's so depleting. I just can't. And what I've been intending to do is to create some videos like this for free on my website. So for people that can't afford it, my services for 60 minutes or 90 minutes, I'll have a section on my website that I'll share this video. And I would like to make one that does talk about the thoughts. It's so important. If you want to do one with me later and we just share it on I would love that. I would love that. But I want to say that I keep my prices well below industry standard for that reason, because on my journey, I had the benefit of my husband's life savings and a man who loved me and said, honey, if you want to live, I want you to live whatever it takes. And I traveled, put boots on the ground on continents, and worked with Aboriginals. So I keep my prices below $200 an hour. There are people out there charging $400, $500, $600 an hour. And I'm sorry, but no spiritual advice is worth that much money an hour. That's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. In my opinion.
Yeah.
You're allowing me to get on my soapbox, so I'm going to.
Yeah, definitely.
So a couple of things about what's happening now, and something I perceived is that people would walk around with the outside of their auric field, the outside surface, which I've never found any other spiritual person talking about, the surface of our luminous architecture, whether you call it aura, toroidal field, what have you. And most people's the surface of their auric field looks like burnt molasses or burnt honey or some crystallized substance. And I find that it's the projections of other people, our friends, our family, our coworkers. Pardon me, I'm starting to get a little bit of a, maybe I need to clear my surface of my auric field right now. I bet you that's what that is. Because anytime I say something that I'm not in 100% purity, I'll get that in my throat. So maybe I need to take my own medicine right now and demonstrate. So I give people full permission. I am on YouTube right now. Perceive the outside of my energy field. And I'm going to inquire, oh yeah, it's crusty and I haven't thought about this for a while. So this is great. So let's do this exercise, Dani. Give me permission to just check on yours, or you check on yours, and they can watch our energy shift.
Yeah, I'll check on mine.
Okay. Yeah. Little bit of buildup. I mean, for me, okay. So this is how I call this the spiritual car wash. So I just ask for the light of grace to shine down on the 360-degree, the exterior surface of my auric field, to cleanse away everything that does not belong to me. All of the projections, thoughts, feelings, emotions, shoulda, woulda, coulda, collective consciousness, swamp goo, the fear, the rage, the indignation, and just 360 degrees scrub, like we're just going through a spiritual car wash until all of that just melts away. So we'll let people watch our process. And sometimes we might need a little extra help, maybe a little violet flame in there. Let's see, I'll wait until I feel that mine is clear, and then you can tell me.
Yeah, you turbocharged yours.
There, when I came forward, it felt complete.
Yeah.
So I'm giving people permission. I'm not giving anybody permission to go in,
No,
but perceive me now, and then back it up and perceive me 15 minutes ago. Because what's been happening the last 3 days, today's March 13th, we've had coronal mass ejection after CME, M-class CMEs, earthquake 7.3, multiple high level, Richter scale earthquakes in Japan. There's a lot going on. So check out, is it okay if I look at just the outside of yours? Mm-hmm. Well, so little star bursts and then behind angel wings. That's how I saw you. So I give all my clients these tools. And what is this? You and I think we were talking about this at some point earlier today. Let's say there's a person who's like the black sheep of the family, or, one of the friends in a group of friends that's always, always down on their luck or what have you. And people are always gossiping behind their back or stealing their potential and saying, oh, that person will never succeed. They'll never find someone they love. I'm sure their marriage will fail, or they can't hold a job, or like my mother used to say horrible things to me when I was a child, just horrible things, and was very physically abusive and emotionally abusive. And thank goodness that, I was able to perceive this. Sometimes I see people with little sticky notes on the outside of their auric field. Like there used to be, a couple decades ago, there was a comedian who used to smash watermelons. I forget what his name was, but anyway, in the US, and everybody thought it was funny. He smashed watermelons and people would hold up raincoats in the first couple rows, But he had this skit where he said, that he wanted to shoot a little suction cup little arrows at people, here's your stupid sign. It was a skit. And it would be like people had little stupid signs, like little arrows slung at them, sticky notes, what have you. And it's all the negativity projected at us. Why is she wearing those shoes with that blouse? Or maybe she should get braces for her teeth because her teeth aren't perfect here, whatever that might be. It accumulates. And when it accumulates enough, we begin to think and feel that about ourselves. That's really tough. So use that spiritual car wash, a bubble of grace, a 360-degree spherical car wash. And now, is that going to necessarily remove 100% of everything that is attached to the outside of your auric field? Possibly not, because there are other types of things, including other people's anger and unforgiveness toward us that can connect. Sometimes parasitic entities from the astral realm. Heck, this happens to us when we go to the grocery store. No one is really immune to. I've never met anybody that I would ever believe is completely immune to this type of stuff.
Never. And that is a failing there in those that put themselves in a position of authority and never clean up their own front and backyard and inside their own house in their vessel. And they will go along and they will keep postulating and hypothesizing and spewing out hyperbole and, I am the great leader. And I'm talking about a lot of men that wear dresses and gowns at the top of the planet, a lot of those idiots. Do not listen, rebuke authority. Like, everyone needs to walk their talk. If you're going to put yourself in a position, walk it, do the cleansing like you're doing now. How dare anybody just sit in a position like that with vulnerable people? And people right now are very vulnerable, and they're so easily led. Guys, we humans, we are the easiest mechanism to program. We're easier than a phone, a computer. We so are. We are so easy to be inserted program after program after program. And to me, that's why self-inquiry in the inner child is the biggest tool. I remember sitting on stage, I was keynote speaking a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 billionaires on stage. I mean, whatever, Trevor, well done. Well done. And you know, we were going through it was an emotional mind, body, soul kind of fest thing. And I said to the three of them, you know what, you guys, every year, make more money, make more wonga, more cars, more birds, more girls, you know, or boys. But that if you do not stop and inquire into that little boy inside of you, you are going to be running for the rest of your life. Mic drop. And one guy got really, really emotional, like, because it's the truth. It's the truth.
Right. I would like to add another layer to this, and that is to just speak to those of us who are friends, especially girlfriends, and you know, people in the healing community. Now more than ever, it is so important how we speak to people, because I've had people say to me, you know, Ginny, why are you so angry? And I'm like, wait, I'm not angry. What do you mean? Well, you're just so angry. And their perspective is so limited. Rather than say, Ginny, I'm feeling anger emanating from you today. Can we look at this? Where's the anger coming from? And then I inquire and I find out, oh my gosh, it's not me. It's maybe the client I had this morning, and they dumped a bunch of stuff in my house, or I've had the voice of my mother at a layer that I hadn't found yet, telling me I'm not the problem, you're the problem. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's like a very stern, angry energy or what have you. But people are so eager to blame and shame other people that there's something wrong with us. And if you're not perfect and you don't resonate with me, then you don't get a seat at my table. Or, you know, it's ludicrous, really. It's absurd, the amount of judgment that is flying around and the limited perspective that a lot of people have about themselves, their self-awareness, and the level of responsibility that they take for themselves, that they have to then project the persecution onto others in order to make themselves feel good. And you know, I learned how not to be a spiritual intuitive by all of the crazy, unfortunate, invalidating, hurtful things people I paid money to said to me on my journey. And with everything going on, and you've mentioned it 3 or 4 times on this call already, please, can we be kind and give people the benefit of the doubt?
You know, people, we will always project out what is really going on inside of us. So you get 2 women together, for example, or 10 men, doesn't really matter, but let's just say 2 women, and they'd be like, oh my God, well, she's wearing a tiara and a choker. They're not even real diamonds. Well, she's in her 50s. Like, what's she? You know, but it's not about me, let's say, as the example. It's about the woman saying that. Where is her pain coming from? What's really upsetting in her world that she's got to be cruel and unkind and project out and mock that with somebody else beside her, you know? And this is something, again, it's never easy for us to go, is there something I have to look at here? Do I need to inquire? Am I being a bitch? Am I out of order? Am I angry? Am I, you know, I had another person write recently, God, Dani is so angry. I'm angry about a lot of things, like the injustice in the world, which is why I try and do something about it by putting myself out there and having these kind of conversations. But it is not a rageful anger. It is a passionate, loving, expressive. And we are all mirrors for each other. And so when I sit with a private client and I say, and they're having a breakthrough or they're moving through something, I will always say, and there are hundreds of thousands of people at this point that could say what I'm saying, they've heard me say. And I say, I'm 2 things. I am love and I am the mirror. And when sometimes people come and they get very emotional towards me and they start saying, Dani, you're this, you're that, I'm like, I'm the mirror. I am reflecting back to you how beautiful, how powerful, how valuable you are. And that then gives a beautiful level for them, self-inquiry, hearing the opposite to what they've been saying to themselves, you know, but them thinking it's outside of them to be able to have the very things they say they admire about someone like me, you know, or you. And then I say, how clever of you to put someone like me or Ginny in front of you in order for you to be able to be reflected back of who you actually are, you know. And at this stage, the program on the world via every single country, bar none, and every single leader on the different layers, bar none, is all about infusing and pressing down and constricting the humans into a state of fear. And when you're in that state of fear, your only defense is to be aggressive, abusive, and push that pain out there, push that pain. It is what's become a natural, normal human response, but actually it's very abnormal. But we've never been told or trained. We've never been given tools en masse of how to deal. So like you said, we're sitting here sharing our tools, sharing a loving self-inquiry, understanding of self, so people can start to absolutely go, do you know what? I'm amazing, I'm love, I'm beautiful, I am worthy, I am valuable. And everything I heard in my childhood, all those programs that belong to other people, those belief systems, none of those are mine. So in my mind, I'm going to go back and I'm going to pick up my 6-year-old self and I'm going to wrap her in my arms and I'm going to sit with her on my lap and I'm going to rock. I'm going to regulate my adult self. I'm going to self-soothe my adult self, because it can be really painful to go and sit my 6-year-old on my lap. And I'm going to hold that baby girl and I'm going to tell her, look how big you got. Look how big you got. You're a grown up now. The things that hurt you can't hurt you anymore. The things that you were told, they're not true and they weren't true. And then if you're soothing your inner child, you can fill your inner child up with everything. You get to be a parent to that child. You get to mother or father that inner child. And what happens is you start to take off what we call the emotional charge that has been attached to that memory inside that little one that still lives inside of you.
And then we don't need those coping mechanisms anymore, those persecutor or even martyr coping mechanisms to manage our safety, security, and survival where we're triggered by what we see. And I think what you just said is there is a very well-known saying in spirituality that what we perceive in others is what we cannot perceive in ourselves. And again, I think it's an immediate opportunity for self-inquiry and healing. Okay, so if I'm judging Dani because she's wearing a tiara today, where am I judging myself based on my own appearance or life choices or standard of living or whatever that might be? It's an opportunity for self-inquiry. Where am I judging myself, right? And there's also some tools on the internet. I think Greg Braden has a wonderful discussion about concept healing tools called the 7 Essene Mirrors by Greg Braden. And it's very interesting information taken from the Nag Hammadi text. I believe it was the Gospel of Thomas. It might have been Philip. I'm not sure. So many books in that. And there are some other tools that, would it be okay, Dani, to share a few tools?
Yes, darling, of course, of course.
You know, there's a lot to be said for tapping, and I'm compelled almost to recommend. I'm compelled to recommend a YouTube site, free site by Brad Yates, Yates, Brad Yates, with one little shift that I want to share about the tapping. And I have the same level of mild concern with respect to neurolinguistic programming. So when we realize that we have a limiting belief, from my perspective, energetically, it's cleaner and more effective, more helpful to us to self-inquire and find the root of that belief and release it, as opposed to programming in a new belief through neurolinguistic programming or tapping, which is in direct contradiction to the belief itself that we're trying to release. So if we were to use tapping to say, you know, I am worthy, I am enough, I am magnificent, I allow abundance, right? So we're tapping that in, but there's, as soon as we say, I am worthy, you hear, no, you're not. I am enough. Oh, far from that. I am attracting abundance. Yeah, you'll never, you know, right? Yeah. So when we're trying to program in through mantra, through the law of attraction, through many different processes or modalities that are out there, I have found it to be so much more effective to find the root of the belief system itself, the limiting or blocking belief or emotion or memory, etc. And oftentimes people will say, well, what do I put in its place? And of course, we always want to refill our energy with divine that frequency that is perfect for us. But from my perspective, my soul has always told me, why would you use your egoic mind to choose something to put in its place when you uncover the divine within you, it will be more magnificent than you can ever imagine. So uncovering that divine that is balanced, that is loving, that is compassionate, that is closer to neutral than you or I are may be able to achieve, right? So I want to recommend that tapping, but I would like you to think about it. I would offer you that you be able to think about it from a place of honoring your nervous system, honoring the trauma that is there. So for example, if you were going to do a tapping process, tap your story. You know, when I was younger, the men in the family were very oppressive to the woman, didn't have high opinions of women. So in my job, anytime I want to ask for a raise or I think I have good ideas, I'm so afraid to come forward and share my opinions because I know I'm going to be shot down. And, you know, that's actually my experience, that I am disrespected or not valued at work. So you're validating your nervous system. Speak out the problem. Allow your nervous system to be seen and heard and felt. Release it. And then I choose to bring in to the fore, to rise to the surface, that divine feminine within me that knows my worth and the power of my creativity. There's a difference there. There's a difference. If we just start trying to cram of all in the Vegas, all the good and wonderful things, it doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for everybody. And then there are Brian Weiss, the author of Many Lives, Many Masters, genius man. He has on his website self-hypnosis process that you can go through for your own self-inquiry. And it's, from my perspective, I'm not a therapist, but very safe. He's a doctor, you're a therapist. Those processes can save you. I mean, to get a QHHRT session, it can be $600.
I got a big problem. Sorry to interrupt you, but you're right. You know, the tools you're giving, the long tried tested tools from people like Dr. Brian Weiss, brilliant. The trends that people jump on, like QHHT, definitely became very much a trend. And I've been disturbed. I have to this date heard a real life, and one of the people I knew, fake hypnosis, paranoid, secret soldier, alien, Pleiadian mess. And both of these women, unfortunately, are disturbed. They are mentally and emotionally disturbed. And I'm really sorry for them. And that's why I've said in that, like, any therapist, any quantum healing, I don't care who you are, you know, one of the first questions we ask as a therapist when we sit down with somebody, and if it's in a clinic and you got your form, you fill your form, you find out, are you on medications right now? Right. It is a responsible act. You know, you don't want to be taking somebody who's mentally and emotionally unwell right now, who may be medicated at the point of you taking them on a journey, who are hitting adrenals, who are then reopening traumas, but they're also overlaying stories that they've been watching as a way to protect themselves from the actual trauma. Like, it can be very complicated. Yeah, so twice I've listened to. One I was sent, I wish the person had never sent it to me. It was to try and publicly shame another person, which I would never do. That's so wicked. It's such a wicked act. But anyway, I heard, and I thought that poor woman is just very mentally and emotionally, genuinely disturbed. And we have to be careful, you know, people are putting themselves in a position of hypnosis and people are blackmailing them, bribing them. This happened in a circle that I was made aware of. You know, it's terrible. And we are vulnerable when we go on that journey of healing. The responsibility of the person tending to the care of them, no matter what label or certificate or degree they have, don't abuse that privilege, that honor, and don't think you're the be all and end all, and don't think you're Jesus, because you're not, right? So anyway, just wanted to touch on that because it's a big deal right now, you know.
Yeah, and I really applaud the community. There are many therapists who are now using EMDR techniques, brain spotting. There's a modality that I'm certified in called Cogno Movement, which is like EMDR and brain spotting, but it integrates Chinese medicine and neuroplasticity techniques, and just amazing modality that I highly recommend for someone. It uses the eyes and accessing the kinesthetic, auditory, and visual learning centers of the brain, and it's just wonderful. It helped me so much getting to some core traumas that after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on my journey, I could not get to. And the Cogno Movement, which is really very similar to EMDR, except EMDR just uses sort of eye level hand, whereas the Cogno Movement ball goes up and down the body through all the chakras. It's very interesting. It's very powerful, and it certainly helped me. There are things that we can do, tools that we can use to help ourselves. Am I saying that nobody ever needs a therapist or a spiritual counselor ever? I am not saying that. I would not be here today were it not for the benefit of many good and bad experiences, you know, on my journey, to help me see what I could not perceive in myself. There was so much that I was incapable of perceiving on my own, and it was such a wonderful glimpse into the true human condition, what's really going on with us at the energetic level, at the subconscious level. And that is one reason, Dani, I'm so grateful for you and what you do and your willingness to uplift others. And it is rare. It's rare in this community. It's rare as a woman to witness it. And I honor you. And I am so grateful. You said earlier, I'm going to cry. You said earlier, you and I are both sort of alpha. You know, we are passionate, and to be willing to share, to share these experiences. I think community is valuable and powerful, and some people are so averse to that. And I really honor you for giving me the opportunity, but not only me, but all of the women that you embrace and uplift on your show. I'm so thrilled to be alive at this time with this tremendous opportunity for all of us to heal. It's hard, and we are the bravest of the bravest of the bravest that we have come here to do this. And we should be uplifting one another. We should be proud of one another.
Yes, every day, all day, every day. And I think, oh, bless your heart. You know, I love you too, darling. You know that. And, you know, I can't not do this. It's not I just can't not, you know, let's bring the tools, let's bring the love, let's bring the multi different layers of who we are in this lifetime and others. And let's just bring passion, love, and truth. So people look and they start to have more confidence and really start to self-question in inquiry and all the rest of it. But also know that along the way, there's like I was saying, the false memories. I was talking to a woman a few weeks ago who wants to come on and tell her story as a secret space program soldier. She's not one. She's not one. What she is a very, very traumatized little girl inside, now an adult, also a mother. And she's, in order to cope and try and find some value and also get into a public arena. I mean, my little channel is tiny. You know, I'm like, don't pick me, pick somebody with more if you want to go that route. But I can feel as a clairvoyant medium, as an intuitive, I can also feel and I can see. You mentioned pictures earlier. When someone talks to me, but they've booked me for a session, I see their pictures. Right. I see their pictures. I feel they've allowed me to enter that energetic, private, sacred threshold. And so I'm there. I'm looking at, seeing, feeling, hearing on every level, and then giving back, gifting back. And then what I do, I just tell people this, I delete everything. Sometimes I go, remember when I told you about, I'm like, no. They were like, remember when you told me I was going to have a girl? I'm like, no, you know, because if I'm with you, and then I delete, I can't be holding people's, I don't want to either. It's like looking on their phone or in their bag. You know what I mean? But it is beautiful, and it is great that, you know, we are hearing as you voice, you know, we should all be uplifting each other. And women, that was the last bastion, apart from the kids, the women lifting women, women supporting women, you know, I remember my mum years ago when she turned 40, you know, she cut her hair. I'm like, well, what'd you do that for, mum? She's like, well, I'm 40. And I said, mum, that's bollocks. You're only 40. You know, now she's 70. So that's 30 years ago. I'm like, mum, she goes, yeah, but you know, I'm like, for God's sake, woman. So at my wedding, he's a really good example of somebody who was so shut down, so shy, desperately wanted to do something, but never gave herself at that time permission. So it was at my wedding, and I got married at Pinewood Studios. And because there they've made The Great Gatsby, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, other great movies. There is a manor house. It's called Heatherly Hall, and a very famous Irish something was signed there. It wasn't there. Anyway, it was a very historical, stunning place. Oh my God, my wedding was beyond beautiful. I was so blessed. I was so blessed. And my mum, we went shopping. Now I'm the loud one, you know, I'm the, you know, my mum's very demure. She's a lady. She's very quiet. She's funny as hell and very smart. So I get her to try on this hat, and she looks a gazillion dollars. And it's a black hat that will go with her black dress and her bright, beautiful blue jacket, right? Very elegant. And she looks and feels like Sophia Loren, you know, and there she is, and we're playing around in the dressing room, and I'm putting the biggest wedding dresses on I can. And she's, you know, it's just so fun. I'm trying on hats. And on the day of my wedding, my mother didn't wear that hat. She just couldn't let herself, because something in her knew that she was the mother of the bride, therefore would be observed. People would look for my mother as mother of the bride. And during that, I'm like, Mom, where's your hat? Go and get it. But she just couldn't, you know. And there's many billions of us that could use that different example, but same thing. And what was stopping my mum was the inner child inside of her that had been verbally and emotionally abused on many levels of abuse, that didn't allow her just to let herself shine in one of the major markers of the way society sets itself up, you know. So yeah, so, you know, don't be the mum that doesn't wear the big hat at your daughter's wedding. You know, don't be the dad that doesn't walk your daughter down the aisle because you haven't had your teeth fixed and you worry that everyone's going to judge you. I mean, God, the stories we all hear. You know, we are in a time of self-inquiry, self-empowerment, self-authority. For me, self-authority is everything.
I have a hat story.
Go on then.
I took vaquero horsemanship training from a lovely man, gifted horseman. And he was also a very gifted cowboy poet, but boy, did he love himself. And he was a tad bit narcissistic and, you know, very, very egoic. And it was coming on summer in Southern California and getting very warm. And maybe the second or third session I had with him, training session, I showed up with my cowboy hat to keep the sun out of my eyes. And he looked at me, and I could tell and he launched into a story that he once had a student who would refuse to wear a cowboy hat because he felt that he hadn't yet earned the privilege of wearing the cowboy hat. And that until he got to a certain level in his training, until he had a good seat and could do rollbacks and all of this, you know, this is Western terminology, right? That he didn't feel that he was had earned the right to wear a cowboy hat. And I say to everyone, wear the damn hat. We don't have to earn the right to wear a hat. And from that day forward, I had really revered, really admired him as a trainer and his gifts. But from that day forward, there was just a little something off about everything he said, that I just questioned his sincerity, because I literally had to take the cowboy hat off. I wasn't allowed to wear a cowboy hat in his presence. To him, it was a prize. So.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Interesting. In England, in Great Britain, we're the best at beating ourselves up. We're the best at talking shit to ourselves and shaming ourselves. And we have something called Sunday best. So you keep your best clothes to wear on Sunday to church, right? And so it's a phrase that exists in our kind of inner brain, mental, psychological programming. And my God, I remember working for a family as a nursery nurse years ago, and they were a Lord and Lady so-and-so. And they had Christine Dior dresses, not that they'd all bought themselves for the baby, but that others had gifted to them. And yet there are these dresses hanging, and this little baby, she's not wearing them. Well, I come along, I'm like, we're wearing that, we're wearing that, we're wearing that. But they were still programmed also in the English way that we say certain things. I'm like, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that. Like, if you want to wear something, wear it. If somebody perceives it as too much or tacky, fine, move along there. Keep your unkind comment to yourself. What is it you need to have a look at in you that's getting triggered, reflected by, it's so funny. So everyone, please wear the shoes, wear the dress up, even if you're in the house on your own and you feel like doing yourself up, like, make much of yourself, give love to yourself. People worry about, I'm on my own on Christmas Day, I'm on my own on New Year's Eve. So was I. And I have a channel on YouTube. And what does that mean? Absolutely nothing. We put way too much pressure on ourselves to fit, right? But now we're taking our own selves by the shoulder, by the scruff, and we're going, no more. None of that, no more. I don't want to get too far off track, although I know we are jumping around, but just in a loving, helpful way. Is there anything in the program that you set for today that you feel in particular that we should leave with people?
A lot of people, I think you and I are both experiencing this, people are, as you said at the beginning of the show, people are having suicidal thoughts. A lot of times I can tell you those thoughts truly are coming from somewhere else.
Yes.
They truly are. We are with every, it is said in metaphysics, with every expansion is followed by a contraction. Therefore stands to reason a contraction precedes every expansion, right? So know that we might be emotional, we might be crying, we might feel the sadness. Use the tools, use the spiritual car wash, use self-inquiry. Some of it might legitimately be ours, but some of it isn't. And it's not necessary to carry around that sort of martyr flag of I'm an empath and that must be my lot in life to just feel the suffering of the world. Let me tell you, there's a lot of unhealed wounds and martyring and self-sacrifice and self-flagellation that goes into believing we are that. And there is a certain part of the spiritual community that is validating that belief in people. And that is one of my biggest pet peeves. It is truly one of the things that can be solved. It may not be the easiest thing, but it can be resolved. Anyway, I think I got off on a tangent on that, but
no, but that's important. So just give a couple of suggestions how people can start to resolve that issue.
Well, number one, being an empath can be a couple of things. It can be that we are in an archetype called empath, and it is a bit of an inversion, and it's a legitimate inquiry experience that we wanted to feel, but we don't have to. It's a part of our contract, our soul contract, that we came in this life to experience being an empath. Have we had enough yet? Mm-hmm. Have we suffered enough yet? Have we felt everybody else's pain and suffering enough yet? Because we have a big enough job healing our own. That is a line item that can be negotiated. Check off, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, burned the t-shirt. Don't need to be an empath anymore. But just like some trauma, it becomes people's identity sometimes. Another way that we can believe or self-identify as an empath is just the wounds that are dysregulating, causing imbalance in our psychospiritual apparatus from the throat chakra up. Right. And so by healing those wounds, those pictures that we talked about earlier, we can begin to allow the chakras and the distribution of energy. The sacral chakra in particular manages the clairs, the psychospiritual abilities.
So go through.
So when we,
because some people won't know what chakra is and some people won't know what the clairs are. So can you just briefly share?
So our chakras, if you think in terms of pranic medicine, Hinduism, the chakras are energy centers or wheels that there are pictures all over the internet of the rainbow energy centers through the body, the root chakra at the base of the coccyx or the peritoneum being red, and then just below the belly button, the sacral chakra being orange, the solar plexus below the sternum above the belly button being yellow. This is our image of ourself as relates to the rest of the world, the way we see ourself, our power. And this whole time, you and I have been talking about standing in our power and claiming our power and not giving our power away. And then the heart chakra, which is often depicted, which is always almost depicted as green, the throat chakra being depicted as blue, the third eye chakra being depicted as indigo. I apologize for my use of words. No. Indigo, tending toward a deeper indigo, and then crown chakra, either depicted as violet or gold, depending on whose website you're on.
Yeah.
And then the clairs being claircognizance, empathy, clairsentience, clairvoyance, gustance, the taste, clairsentiency, the being able to smell. These are our psychic senses beyond the 5 physical senses. And so they all play the regulation, the implementation of our psychic senses feed in to this belief that we are just simply empathic. Their empathy gives us the ability to relate to feel.
It's important information that we're going
just have psychics. If we don't have that, I don't know if I went away or not, but we don't need to have that psychic sense be the only one that's turned up to high. We can adjust the dials. Yes. And by healing the sacral chakra at the deeper levels, the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, the deepest levels, the multidimensional levels of that chakra, we begin to come into balance with our masculine and feminine energy. And that begins to automatically bring into balance all of our psychic senses. But it is a journey of self-awareness, for sure.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And you said about the sacral and the information kind of coming in there, and you started to say, like, what is the energy or the information that we would tend to pull in from the first chakra, the sacral chakra?
I put a little chart here on my desk just in case this topic came up, because and let me tell you, if you go to 5 different websites, you'll probably get 5 different descriptions.
And all different colors as well. It's not, these are guidelines, guys.
Right. And our chakras, as we evolve, are changing colors. Yeah. And they are shifting from being conical to being spherical. It's part of our evolution. It's part of this conversation about the activation of our light bodies. It's part of our evolution. So it's changing. And the information that we've been using for many centuries, many millennia, in fact, is beginning to shift. It is beginning to shift, and new information is coming in all the time. So first chakra, root chakra, survival instinct, security, grounding. It is the environment, the culture, this society that we are born into, our religion, our governments, right? It so informs us and programs us. And some people say that wounds or let's say challenging experiences that we have from age 1 to 7 are primarily accumulated in that root chakra. But make no mistake, I have cleared wounds or experiences from my solar plexus, my third chakra, that happened to me when I was 3 years old. So there is no protocol, there is no chart that I have ever found to be 100% accurate in any spiritual philosophy or modality.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
So second chakra, sacral chakra, orange. A lot of emotional turbulence there because of masculine and feminine imbalance, patriarchal, matriarchal, the degradation, the misuse of the feminine, the patriarchal society, the government that we have been, the world cultures, many very oppressive cultures to women, and heck, in South America, not just the Middle East, right? Let's say it true. Third chakra, solar plexus chakra, energy, vitality, desire, power. This is the chakra where our perception of ourself, where do we fit in our reality? Where do we fit in our relationship to ourself as relates to the world, to our society, to our culture, to our socially accepted standards, mores, the government, right? Where do we fit in? Our relationship with ourself, our perception of ourself. Fourth chakra, heart, love, hope, compassion. But on the flip side, doubt, unworthiness, feeling distraught, feeling frustrated. Those energies can shut down, can literally create a block to that heart chakra. And I have a story, if we have time at the end. It's a fascinating, I think you might enjoy it, story. Fifth chakra, throat chakra, communication, creativity, healing, our will versus divine will. So when we start our healing journey, we're expressing our will, our desires, our free will, right? And as it heals and begins to open, and we open that heart chakra, we begin to express the will of, pardon me, I'm burping because I think we're healing as we're talking. I apologize.
Yeah, releasing energy. Yes, all
absolutely.
Good. All good.
We begin to express, and I think I'm really at that place where I feel myself sometimes, I don't know what I'm saying, it's just coming from my soul. I'm able to express that divine, that oversoul, Christed oversoul, I am presence through my voice. And I've worked so hard on that, and I know many of us are. And then fifth chakra. So sixth chakra, third eye chakra, clairvoyance, intuition, psychic senses. Now, this is a fascinating chakra because all of our chakras represent a level at which we are expressing our consciousness. And when we heal enough our issues of the squares and the triangles and the pictures in the lower chakras, we begin to open the sixth chakra, the third eye chakra, to a level where we begin to access the Christ consciousness. And how many people do you know that are on the quest for experiencing, expressing Christ, embodying Christ consciousness? And this chakra is that level of awareness. Now, this is not the same thing as someone having a random Kundalini awakening. They do some really crazy breath work like Wim Hof or Tumo, which is a Zen Buddhist practice, or holotropic breath work, and they do Qigong 2 hours a day for 60 days, and they have this awakening and they think, I have arrived, I'm there, no more healing. That's a bit of a false kind of a sense of arrival, and it's not permanent. It's not permanent. Make no mistake. Some people think it is. And then the seventh chakra, the crown chakra, cosmic consciousness, understanding, enlightenment, and who isn't out there chasing it down, but like the Buddha falling asleep under the tree. I'll forget it. I'll never achieve it. And then you wake up one morning when you give up trying to chase it down, and you have arrived. Throw away all your books and your manuals and everything, and you just be and you just express. I have a story I'd like to share. This is a secondhand story. A girlfriend of mine who's a naturopathic doctor recently went to, I think, Utah, to a conference of naturopathic doctors. And the husband of another female naturopathic doctor stood up to share. He said, I just had the most profound experience. I just want to share it with everyone. And he said his whole life, he had dreams of walking down what seemed like a culvert, like a ditch, and there was no water in it. And his whole life, and I'm guessing he was about, she said 60s or 70s, because he had grandchildren. So his whole life he had these dreams, just trudging along, plodding along. Every time he plopped his foot on the ground, dust would fly. It was so parched. It was just a very difficult dream to have for his entire life. And finally, one day recently, he reached a part in the culvert where there was a manhole, and the manhole cover was like welded shut. And he saw that as the source of water, of nourishment, of hydration. And he looked at this manhole cover welded shut, and he said, who would do such a thing? And in his dream, a voice said, you did it to yourself. And that was his heart chakra. And he said, well, now that I know that, let's, and so he went on to share that his life changed, his family's life changed, everybody around him, their lives all changed. And for me, I think this is a perfect thing for me to feel like I can put the cherry on the top of my intention for today, to say that when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. So many people want to do something, be something, make a big change, save people. Save yourself, and everything around you will change. Your home, your children, your grandchildren, your husband, your wife, your friends, your partner, your job. Everything will get better. You don't need a vision board. You don't need to manifest. You just need to be in alignment with your soul purpose, and your soul will take you on the ride of your life. And as I'm always told, it will be more magnificent than you can ever imagine. Yeah. And the truth is, for me, where I sit in my experience every day, my life today, I can say, is more magnificent than I could have ever manifested intentionally.
So beautiful. Ginny, thank you so much. That's so great. And I just want to leave a final thought, really, as much as we're trying to bring as many tools in a loving way for people to really kind of come to terms with self-authority, self-inquiry, inner questioning, self-responsibility. Most people who have had some kind of upset or trauma, and I will say most, that's my experience, including myself, will say things like, someone will abuse you, yell at you, scream at you. Maybe you're married to a horrible person that abuses you verbally. Maybe that's your parents or whatever. But we will often respond with, you made me feel. And this is so enormous. And I'm talking about, let's say there's a guy who's, let's just do the normal kind of generalizing thing. There's a man who's being very abusive verbally to his wife, and she's standing there and she's taking it. He's being a dickhead. He's had a shitty day. The kids are there. He couldn't care less. Women do this too. And children do this to their parents too, just for the irritable ones out there that have to find flaw, in an analogy that actually happens in real life. But I want to say to the woman that standing there taking the verbal abuse, don't even go into question why you're taking the abuse. Take one thing from whatever happens, please, as a step forward in your self-healing and your self-authority and self-ownership. The man screaming in your face does not have the power to make you feel a certain way. Only you do. Now, I went through a stage of being in that scenario. And before I could figure out that I didn't need to live in that toxicity, when said person would be in my face, all but bashing me with fists, I was terrified and broken down. But in my mind, I'd be going, twat, 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 dick face, fuck off, shut up, you're ugly. Because what it did, it put an element of humor into a potential really terribly damaging, traumatic, verbal, PTSD-inducing expression. But I learned to understand I don't have to take this in the way that you mean it to harm me. I can be there physically, but mentally I'm not there. You no longer touch me. You no longer have effect on me. I'm going to decide how I'm going to feel. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there isn't a single person in that kind of an environment that can make you feel, oh, you made me feel like this, Dani. You said this and I feel like this because of you, Dani. No, our decision. I know it sucks. I know it's really irritating to hear that. I've had clients over the years say, it annoys me so much when you say that, Dani. Of course it does, but it is true. It is true. It is true. Ginny Jablonski, love, you are a human and animal soul whisperer. You have a body of knowledge and experience. You have brought animals from the brink of their own depressive suicidation by resting your, I was saying someone yesterday, I was like, putting your forehead to forehead on a horse, for example. You are multi-talented, multi-skilled, and I am so proud of you and so happy this is our fourth broadcast together on a multitude of subjects. And thank you so much for being here, my love.
Thank you, Dani, from my heart to yours and to the audience. Hang in there.
Thank you, darling. And to you beautiful souls out there, you beautiful, gorgeous people on your own journeys, as we all are. Thank you so much for being here. And if you want to book a session with Ginny, her details will be under this broadcast. And if you would like a one-to-one session with me, same thing will be there. All right, so I send you my love and I'll see you soon.